Good morning, all. I'm John Longstreet, President and CEO of the Pennsylvania Restaurant and Lodging Association, and I have with me today our Chairman of the Board for 2022, Tom Neely. Tom, great to have you here in Harrisburg.
It's great to be here.
Thanks for making the trip.
Absolutely.
We're going to have a chat over the next period of time, maybe half an hour, 45 minutes, and find out a little bit about our new chairman and about some of our plans for PRLA over the next year. But before we do that, let me first thank our sponsor. PRLA could not do all the things that we do without our preferred partner sponsors. And one of those, our preferred partner for coffee, is Ellis Coffee Company. Ellis has been a huge supporter of PRLA over the years. We really appreciate Gene Kestenbaum and the entire team there. And thank you for sponsoring the webinar today for us, Gene. We really appreciate that. So Tom, again, it's great to have you here. I'm very excited about your year as chairman. I think we're going to do some great things together.
I'm hoping we will too. I've got some great ideas that I think we've talked about, and I think the team's excited about.
Absolutely. Before we get into that, though, let's find out a little bit about you. Now, you are a Pennsylvania native, am I correct?
I am a Pennsylvania native. I grew up in Camp Hill, and what brought us to Pennsylvania was my dad actually was hired as the president of the Hospital Association of Pennsylvania.
Wow.
And was in that role for about 15 years before he retired.
So you have associations in your blood then, so to speak.
Well, maybe. Yes.
And we're sitting here, the audience doesn't know this, but we're looking over to Camp Hill across the Susquehanna River. You can probably almost see your neighborhood over there.
Well, it's a little bit further than that. But
Well, it's great to have you here and great to have you as chairman. Now, you're obviously a hotelman, mm-hmm. And I spent most of my life running hotels, as you know, too. How'd you get into business?
Well, with my dad being in the Hospital Association and all of the things that he was doing with hospitals and thus, and, the fact that in those days, we did a ton of entertaining in our home, to which my mother did all of the planning and execution. We didn't hire people to do that.
Wow.
So
she was like an event coordinator.
She was, and I was one of 5 children. So we had our own staff to manage the events. At Christmas time, we'd have 300 people in our home with this huge holiday party for the office and colleagues. And, I really enjoyed that interaction, that hospitality interaction. And thinking about it and seeing what my dad was doing, and hospital management and hotel management are pretty much the same, except one critical factor. Yeah, that's right. We're dealing in much more fun outcomes.
Yeah.
So that's what drove me that way.
Several decades ago, hospitals started operating even more like hotels. Yeah. They started focusing on their physical plan, upgrading their rooms, having single rooms,
Yes.
having great food. So it's amazing the similarities today between hospitals and hotels.
It really is. And what they're doing with food product and so forth, they've really upped their game.
Right. And then you were at Penn State.
I did. Unusual to most kids. I knew hospitality management was what I wanted to study, so I chose my applications accordingly and fought hard to get into Penn State main campus.
We have a bunch of Penn State alums on the call, I'm sure. And the School of Hospitality Management there, which I'm honored to serve on the advisory board of, is a phenomenal program. I think it's getting better all the time. So they're doing terrific work there. So you've been running hotels throughout your career, and in that both of you and I have run hotels for much of our life. We know it's a 24-hour day, 7-day-a-week job.
Yes.
Even so, you always make time to give back to the community. I know about your community involvement and the industry and PRLA and to raise your family. What's been your secret to how you can get so much done with so much on your plate?
Well, John, first and foremost, the reason I get as involved as I do is because I think corporate citizenship is important. I think it's important to give back to the community that supports you and your business. Now, the secret to getting everything done really is prioritization. What's your priority? And quite honestly, first and foremost, my family is my biggest priority. I have 2 really beautiful daughters, one a senior in high school this year and one a sophomore at Penn State. So those are first and foremost, always making time for that. But, in as much when you run a business and your team is trained and be able to do the work that they do every day at a high level, being able to step in and out of that business to do other things and support the community and the industry becomes a little bit easier. because you're able to, kind of bounce between the two. And, certainly if I'm prioritizing, my business is first, and then my outside priorities are next after that. But again, when your team is well trained and well suited for what they're doing, that helps.
When I was in elected office in Plano, the city manager there used to tell me, if you don't take care of your day job, you can't do your volunteer work. So that's good prioritization on that part. But you mentioned your team and how important the team is in order to be able to get the things done outside of work that you want to do and to maintain a solid family life. I know that you have always been big about the culture you've developed so that you could have a cohesive team, people that loved working there and that could accomplish more than the typical team could. I saw that in practice with you as the general manager at the Nittany Lion Inn. How do you do that? How talk to me about the culture that you try to create there and why that's so important to the team?
Well, John, first, I think the way that comes together is you've got to get the entirety of the team to understand a great place to work opportunities, right? And creating that. It's not just about one person in the business. It's about having the whole team on that same trajectory of great place to work and making sure that your business is set up to take care of the people throughout the organization, right? No matter what the position, what the job, every one of them is important. And what I found really helps create that team atmosphere is utilizing and seeking ideas at every level of the organization and implementing those ideas that are good for business. Some of the best ideas that we've come up with in my history have come from, those folks that do the job every day. And
how do you harvest the ideas? How do you get them to you?
Ask.
How's that work?
Well, I'm a firm believer in management by walking around and being in the operation. I'm a no job too small manager. So why just the other day I was in the restaurant helping serve a group. And not only was it good for me to be able to get to know the team in the restaurant, but it also I think shows the team that we're all in this together. And when you're all in it together and they understand that, they are much happier to be doing what and pulling their weight.
So management by wandering around, MBWA, great concept. And it sounds like you're very much a side-by-side leader. Would you say that's true?
Yeah, again, the no job too small philosophy, I think really pushes that forward. Again, if it's making beds, or if it's serving, or if it's helping carve turkey on the buffet, or whatever those jobs are, if there's a need, anybody should be willing to fulfill it if they're able.
Well, the no job too small concept is definitely in practice now with the staffing crisis we're in the middle of. I haven't talked to any general manager who isn't doing those things now because they have to, to get the business done. Yeah. But that's really interesting to learn about creating a great place to work culture, but it starts with the style that you carry into that. So if you had to describe your leadership style, how would you describe it?
My leadership style is a very open, two-way communication style. I think it's important that everybody has a voice and that you're willing to listen and understand. I also am a firm believer that, while rules and decisions get made, my door is always open. And if I have a person on the team that doesn't agree with the rule or decision that's made, they're invited, more than welcome, to come in and chat with me about that. And certainly make a case. And if they make a case that is convincing enough or has enough reason to think about changing the decision, we can do that. But also having everybody in a position of integrity and respect for each other. And if the decision stands, then the decision stands and we all move forward together.
So you make sure that everybody has their voice. And then once it's decided, you go arm in arm and get it done.
Right.
Have you ever had a case where you've had a difficult time with someone not coming along with that, even though they've had a chance to make the case? And how did you resolve it?
Yeah, because people feel strongly about their opinions.
Yeah.
And, it really becomes a matter of being able to talk that out and help everybody understand the impact of what the decision is and why the decision was made, and the importance of everybody being arm in arm, right? So that becomes a one-on-one conversation with that individual so that they understand the importance of it and the impact of making sure we're all on the same page.
Yeah. Throughout the time we've worked together, and I've been blessed to work with you most of my 8 years here in some form or fashion, we laugh a lot.
Yes.
And we find a way to sometimes laugh in the face of adversity. And I know that in the workplace, it's really important for team members, particularly when they're serving guests, to be having fun, because guests want to be around people that have fun.
Yeah.
How do you promote that in your operations?
Well, I think it is needs to be pervasive. I think, I'm a firm believer in the power of positive thinking. And quite honestly, when I'm out and about, it would be very rare to hear me say anything antithetical to a positive thought. Because I think, there's always a way, to your point, to find something positive in everything. And quite honestly, laughing in the face of adversity helps people relax a little bit. And you got to relax to get it done, or else, because if you get too tight, then it's hard to do what we do so well.
Has this concept or this philosophy of yours evolved throughout your career, or was there a moment in time that you kind of had a wake-up call?
Well, there was a moment in time early in my career. I was a young, fearsome college graduate that knew everything, as we have all been. And I was in my first department head position at a hotel and it was in housekeeping. I was director of housekeeping, and the guest room attendants were all probably half again older than I was. And I came in thinking, I know everything, and we're going to do what we're going to do. And the team didn't come along very easily. So the general manager and I had a long conversation. He taught me the value of there's a naval concept. We are an aircraft carrier, not a destroyer. An aircraft carrier has to take a long sweeping turn if you're going to change things. And that destroyer can go out there and turn on a dime. Yeah. We're not a destroyer. So be more like the aircraft carrier.
Take it easy. Take it a little slower.
And from that point forward, I was able to turn that team. We were able to come together, and that helped me down the path. I still tripped quite a bit going forward, but it was those ladies in that department that helped me see more of the light.
I've learned so much more from the people that ostensibly reported to me than I have from my bosses over the years. It's incredible.
Yes.
As long as you're open to see the things you can learn.
Absolutely.
So getting back to your involvement outside of work and how much you contribute to the community and now to the industry. I know full well that you didn't seek the role of PRLA chairman. In fact, you pointed out today that you've been an officer now for not quite 4 years, and you'd never been to the corporate office where we are today because of the pandemic.
That's right.
And but you readily agreed, I know, when you were asked by the PRLA nominating committee to get on the ladder and ultimately step up to chairman as you are this year. Why did you think that was important?
Well, John, first and foremost, I'm passionate about the industry. I'm passionate about what I do every day. And I thought that if I had the opportunity, even in some small way, to help form and structure a path forward for us, I felt for years that our industry has garnered not the best reputation in the workforce. Mm-hmm. And I think workforce development and industry reputation go hand in hand. And I figured I wanted to be able to speak from the tallest tree about that, and trying to get our industry focused. And I think many have begun to realize that even more now in the staffing crisis, which started long before the pandemic, that we have to evolve our industry and change the conversation. And I thought this would be a great opportunity to help change that conversation, even in some small way.
Even though you started this journey almost 3 years ago to do this, your timing was perfect, because there has never been a staffing situation like we have now. You know that.
Yes.
But as you pointed out, and I was looking at a chart yesterday for a lecture I was preparing, that in 2019, the number one issue facing our industry, according to operators, was staffing. In 2021, the number one issue, but it's exacerbated now, is staffing. And I think what we learned, and you touched on this point, what we learned during the pandemic is many people left the industry because they had to. We were shut down. We were shut down. They had to go find another job, and a lot of them didn't come back. And it was a bit of a wake-up call. We were going to look at the way we do business to some degree.
Right.
And you and I are in this because it's in our blood. We love it. Can't imagine doing anything else other than doing hospitality. But others left it and say, well, I'm not so sure I want to come back. So you touched on this already, but Tom, as we enter this new year and hopefully see COVID in the rearview mirror, what are your goals and objectives for PRLA? You talked on one, and maybe we could expand on that a bit more about the workforce development, and then the other things that you have in mind.
Well, I do think the number one priority is certainly workforce development. And I've been long a member of our Education, Health and Safety Committee, co-chaired it for a period of time prior to becoming an officer, and have been a big proponent of both ProStart and HTM, and finding ways to integrate those two curriculum into secondary education. I think that while that is the long game, I think we have to play the long game to resolve our current staffing situation. We need more young people to become passionate about the industry. And it's, I said this before today, it's really is changing the conversation, but it's changing the conversation in multiple points. And so one of my biggest priority in this next year is to help and encourage membership of PRLA and all businesses in our industry to get involved and help change the conversation. The conversation has to be changed with young people, because quite frankly, there's too much pressure on young people today saying, why do you want to get into that industry? Mm-hmm. Because of this, that, or the other thing. Look what happened in this last 2 years. Well, I think now more than ever, the trajectory of success for a young person is even better than it has ever been, considering what we have available to us in the industry.
Absolutely.
So if we can all come together and get involved with young people, whether it's getting involved in the occupational advisory committees at your local high schools or CTCs, or making yourself available, seeking out and make yourself available to speak to DECA and FBLA clubs across the state, and really driving the message to young people, creating an open door work experience opportunity. Maybe it's even job trial kind of things to have people come in and just see what it's all about.
Right. To pick that apart just a bit, the first thing you talked about was ProStart and HTM, which are the high school level programs that get young people interested in either hospitality management in the hotels for HTM, or in either culinary or restaurant management in ProStart.
Right.
ProStart's in, I think, about 40 schools in Pennsylvania right now. It should be in 400. And HTM's in a handful of schools. Okay. So what you're saying is that our members, our industry people, whether members or not, if they could get involved with those occupational career boards at their high school level, or if it's CTC, either one works fine, then they could help to influence helping to get ProStart or HTM into the program.
I think that's true, because and that's really talking to the young people, because what I found out about high schools and CTCs is they aren't starting a program unless there's enough interest. Mm-hmm. And they do interest surveys annually of the students, and the more they can get interest in these programs, the more apt they are to adopt the curriculum. And so it really is, again, it's the long game. I get it. But I think the short side of that for us is if we can create that open door work experience opportunity, that starts young people coming into our doors in an employment situation.
Really good point. On the ProStart program, again, just to get back to that for a second, I did a lecture yesterday at York College, one of the competitors to Penn State, but I know you work side by side.
We do.
And I was talking about workforce development. I talked about ProStart, and one of the students raised their hand and said, I'm at York College because I had a chance to take ProStart when I was in Maryland. And I love the industry now because I got that exposure to it. That's one way to get the exposure, but the other way to do it, as you said, is to open your doors of your hotels or restaurants and bring student groups through. Suggest to the schools that they bring their students through and see what it's like. And again, I mentioned it was with Bill Hendricks at the Hotel Hershey last night, and they do that regularly. They bring student groups through to see what it's like to be in the hotel business. Yeah. And you had the opportunity to see hospitality from a different vantage point when you were young. I saw it because I went to work in a restaurant, and so as many people do. But the more opportunities we have, give people to see what a great career it is. It's fun at any level. There's rewarding at any level, but there's a good career there too.
Yeah, I think it's a great career, and I do think that many of us who are long tenured in the industry are understanding too that part of Great Place to Work is creating that ability to have work-life balance, which is one of the things that people believe we don't have. Mm-hmm. And I think the opportunity for work-life balance is very strong. And we as business operators and owners have to be committed to that because that's what the next generations are looking for and want and need.
And they're smart to look for that. In my opinion,
sure.
As somebody who grew up in a business where we work 90 hours a week routinely, I think they're a lot smarter than maybe we were back then. But that said, I know you've promoted that within your hotels. It's one thing to say we're all about work-life balance, but how did you actually make it happen for your team members?
At the end of the day, you have to be committed to it, right? It's a commitment across the organization to work-life balance and making sure that everybody's bought in that, even when you may not be as well staffed as you should be, making sure that people have the opportunity to have their personal time. Right. I think to expect people certainly if they volunteer, that's one thing, if that's something they choose to do, but to expect an 80 or 90 hour week is really outside the realm of what we should be doing anymore.
Do you ever kick people out of the hotel? So it's time for you to go home?
I've done that before, on many occasions.
Yeah. So we talked about workforce development, education. What else? What else is on your list for this year?
I do think that as we look past communication and changing the conversation, which is the number one priority, it really is engagement of our membership. It's to the point you made earlier, it's hard to balance your corporate civil interaction, but I think to be engaged as a larger community is very important. So my hope and my encouragement to all membership is that we work harder at being together and making ourselves available to each other. Because I do think it will take all of us to get to the other side. We've come a long way in the last 2 years, but boy, do we have a long way to go. And I think it's going to take really all of us coming together even more so to make that happen.
Mm-hmm. So we have a couple of big conferences coming up this year. Your year as chairman, one of them is going to be in Lancaster in June, the Leadership Summit, where we have 3 fantastic speakers there. And we're still working on the details for the fall event in September, where we're going to combine the statewide golf tournament with the conference. But if you're not a golfer, we'll still have plenty for you to do there.
Yes.
I know you are a golfer. So I think it's going to be a great year for conferences. I'm really excited about it. The one in June, the lineup we have with Meredith Elliott Powell and the other 2 speakers is really terrific.
I'm very excited about both of those conferences. I know that, the fall conference, we're going to do it at a different time period than we're normally used to. But I think at the end of the day, combining it with the statewide golf tournament will be a great opportunity for membership, and maybe get more broad across the state participation in that. Again, bringing people together from across the breadth of the state.
Yeah. But we haven't talked much about membership, and as you know, we've been very blessed throughout the pandemic in that literally people coming to us saying, how can I become a member? And we actually have 1,000 more members today than we had going into the pandemic. So what do you think about membership as we look to that in 2022?
You know, we've had lots of conversations about membership, right, over the past couple of years. And I think that the way PRLA has evolved under your leadership, and by becoming the association of all in the industry, you know, the source of information for all in the industry is really important, because what that has done is it's shown folks who have not typically been engaged what they're missing out on, right? Getting engaged. And I don't know how many people I've spoken with, member or non-member, that has not said, at least at some point in the conversation, PRLA saved my business.
It's really cool.
Right? And what a great feeling that should be for you and the team, the excellent team here at PRLA, because just by the information, the communication, and the guidance that you've been willing to give to members and non-members alike has been huge. And that has helped engage more folks into membership, understanding that they need to be part of something bigger.
I can't let that comment go by without echoing what you just said and talk about the phenomenal team at the PRLA. I inherited many of them and added a few really phenomenal people to the team, but it's absolutely the best team I've been with in the 45 years I've been leading teams. And I think the PRLA team today is as good as it's ever been. So very excited about what they got done, and particularly the communications team stepping forward and doing so much from nothing with no communications, outward reaching communications effort, at least not at the magnitude that we've done now. We've had some 5 million views of our daily update now. Most people view it as the source for news, but it's all the team. All I did was give them the resources to do the job, and then they got it done. And that's been I've been very blessed in that regard. Before we get to maybe a final question, let me ask you this. I know you're not prepared for this, but I think you can do it. What do you like to do when you're not working and not volunteering?
John, you know, this business sometimes can cause a little bit of internal stress. So one of the things that I do to help alleviate that stress is I go out to my workshop and I run a board through a saw.
Really?
But
yeah, you're a woodworker.
I'm a woodworker hobbyist.
Wow.
And you know, my wife would tell you that I've made some pretty fun things, and have been able to do some things for our home that, you know, have been a lot of fun and quite honestly fun to do. And I've been able to involve my daughters in some of those projects, and it's been great. I do relish the time I spend in the wood shop.
So it's fun and it's therapy?
It is both.
I used to do model trains, and I would come home from the hotel, and I would sometimes work out in the garage till 2 o'clock in the morning on the train. And Brendan would say, "What are you doing?" I said, "About my therapy session."
There's nothing better than running a board through a saw, I'm telling you.
Well, that's really cool. All right, so we're just a few days into your administration as the chairman of the board of the PRLA. When you retire from this position, what do you want people to think about what happened this year?
Again, I think I'm going to go back to my cornerstone of changing the conversation. I would like, and again, to be able to know that in some small way, we as an organization have been able to impact that goal at some level, and start seeing uptick in young people being involved in our industry. You know, it's a long game, I get it, but we have to start somewhere. And I think if we put a big effort on the front end, that will start to pay off over the long run. And, you know, I don't expect huge numbers to change anytime soon, but I would think that we would at least be able to see some, over the next few years, upward swing. And getting that moving forward. That is where I would love to see our industry go. And I think if we in Pennsylvania can really focus on that, that will help us in the state and being a leader. We're already known as a leader in the industry under your leadership with PRLA, but I think the whole of the industry can take a step forward.
It's a worthy thought, and it's something that we should be able to accomplish. And I'm glad to be able to do it with you this year.
I'm glad to work. I'm tell you, I'm so glad to work with the team. And, I know Hope Sterner and the Director of Education is excited about some of those opportunities. And, we've got the Pro Start competition coming up here soon, just about a month away from today. And I think we're still looking for a few volunteers. So it'd be great if anybody listening today could consider to be a volunteer for judging. I know that Hope would very much appreciate your input.
There may not be a day that you could spend in this industry that you'll be more charged up than if you get involved in Pro Start.
Yes.
It's incredible what you'll walk away with. You'll give something, but you'll walk away with a lot more.
It is. There's nothing more satisfying than watching those kids and their excitement and their engagement in that program.
Yeah, absolutely. With you 100% on that. Well, Tom, again, thank you for volunteering, because it takes a large part of your life this year to make sure that the PRLA continues to stay on a good track. And I know that we will, and I'm looking forward to working with you. So thanks for coming over to Harrisburg today.
I very much appreciate it, John. Thank you very much.
And thanks to all of you for tuning in today. We appreciate you being here, and we'll see you again at the next webinar. And as always, you're welcome to submit questions through the web chat, and we respond to all of those. If you have any further thoughts you'd like us to explore with you, please do so, and we'll get back to you right away. And with that, we'll be signing off for today. Thank you.